Hey everybody, welcome to episode 53 of Tactical Crouch. This is the grand finals episode. We're here, another season of Overwatch League, come and almost gone. Vancouver Titans versus the San Francisco Shock. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody rated those teams in the top 3 to 4. And, it was a surprise all the way. I will say this. This is the one thing that I will say. I think that we are seeing the two best teams in the league in the grand finals, and for all the flaws of the the scheduling and strength of schedule and all that stuff, by error or not, I feel like we have the right two teams in the grand finals if you look at it completely objectively.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would agree.
The only other team you could make the argument for is NYXL.
Yeah.
And if you take stage playoffs into account, I think that's a weak argument as well.
Yeah. Because they can't win in stage playoffs.
Yep.
Yep.
And obviously got mega... no, actually, let me not say this. They got 4-0'd by Shock, but it wasn't a stomp.
No.
It was not a
definitely
stop.
because
It was a pretty...
on a lot of maps,
yeah.
we often saw the golden rectangle on their pushes, meaning that like overtime situations, certainly close, maybe one time find a way on some of those maps. But yeah, like still very, very impressive, of course, not dropping a map in the lower brackets. Insane performance. Writing was on the wall for Shock to be a super team. And they even delivered above expectations in that regard, I think, over the season.
I would say so. Going, at 16-0 in the losers bracket is pretty crazy. I think this is like a love letter to stage 2 in the golden stage. This is pretty incredible. And to see them going into the finals and, if they win off the back of that, that's a pretty fun story to retell people, in Overwatch League Season 15. Remember when the San Francisco Shock made the undefeated run and overcame the Titans in the trilogy? Like, this either way, this is going to be an incredible final.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I couldn't be more happy about the teams that we saw. And again, last season, I didn't feel that way. We had the London Spitfire and the Philadelphia Fusion, and if you were writing or talking about Overwatch League in Season 1, you were trying to find ways to justify why these were the two best teams. And I think that especially for London, I think you could, because we were so close off the heels of Apex. We were so close to seeing these teams, really kind of define a meta in Apex, which at that time was kind of the dictating tournament,
the governing body.
They were that's where the good players and the good teams largely went, and the winners of that were largely considered the best in the world.
Yeah. I mean, and taking two of the best teams from that era and slapping together in one team, you're going to have mechanical geniuses, and that's what London still is kind of made up from. It's just that this season and maybe Overwatch League going forward is more teamwork oriented. We're seeing that this is a better indicator of a team doing well is how well do they do in teamwork and team compositions, and how good the coaching can manage different personalities, which is something that London really never has done in the past. And given the right circumstances in Season 1, they were able to just kind of wake up and showcase, why they were considered some of the best players in the world. And, they took home Season 1. So can't really count them out. They're always a dark horse, or at least, we'll see going forward.
In the weeks to come, I'm guessing over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're actually going to do a little bit of a post-mortem on Season 2. And part of those I took some time and went through and read through the comments on all of our preseason power rankings, good and bad. Of course, I screenshotted the worst of them. All you keyboard courage warriors, letting us know what you think about our takes. And of course, I cherry picked only the wrong ones. And then, we're going to talk about all those, have a little fun over the next couple of weeks. And,
some of those
Get prepared.
Some of those were actually worse than me saying that Chengdu is going to be the worst team in Overwatch League.
I wouldn't go that far.
Ridiculous.
I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, there were some really great ones. It's great to reminisce. And, you know, the Overwatch League, if you're like a content creator, the Overwatch League season is kind of it's a marathon, man. You know, you've got stuff going on week to week to week to week for so long, which is awesome. We always had something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But we also never really got to like zoom back out from what we were doing pre Overwatch League season 2, right? And so I'm really excited to be able to do that again, to be able to, you know, kind of
take a step back, enjoy the scenery,
make some like, who's going to sign who, and how are these different, homestands going to affect how teams perform, and there's so many great things that we're going to get to talk about. So
I'm still kind of debating on whether or not this is going to be another era, right? I think we had like the pre-organization era back in like 2015, early 2016, and then I think we had like the org era in 2016 going into 2017 before Apex really started to pop off, and then Apex, and then Overwatch League era. I think this is a big enough change to how players are going to have to perform, let alone the numerous patch changes that are undoubtedly on its way. I think this is like reason to believe that this could be another, you know, break in the timeline, and this is where we had, you know, actual relatively formulaic Overwatch League. You know, this is what they wanted in the first place, so why not break the timeline here and define it as something a little bit different, you know? What do you think, Yiska? You think this is big enough?
I mean, the thing is, like, I had an article, I think, after stage 1, I think, where I said this was going to be the golden era of Overwatch. And
what, this season or next season?
This season, starting from then. Okay. Some of the reasons didn't come true. For instance, sort of like at the time, we didn't quite know when a massive meta shift was coming in. It was assumed goats would be going quickly. It was also assumed in the article that goats would be undesirable. I don't see that notion all too often now that we're past it. I think a lot of people that now think more fondly back on it, especially over the stage 4 meta perhaps. But I think overall, while we could debate if this is the golden era of Overwatch, I mean, the storylines, what these two teams specifically have given us is as good as it gets, I think. Yeah. I don't think you can, other than them like competing literally in all 3 stage finals, and therefore having a score there. Arguably, it's even more satisfying now, because now you're at the 1-1 break-even point, and now this one is the decider. Like, everything about this is great. Like, you have storylines like Harsha being in both teams. You have storylines of redemption and people making really unexpected comebacks, such as Rascal. Some things, for instance, in Vancouver Titans, how good is a complete Korean Contenders team? Like, all these things, these narratives that, even though we had systemic issues over the entire season, just like clobbering these narratives like as hard as possible, like in a more solid state system, these two teams would be even more dominant, and they would very clearly be the best ones. Like, I don't think there would be any doubt about it. For instance, if we had full round robins, if we had more frequent like meetings of those two teams, I think it would be very quickly become clear that these two teams are the best that we had this year. Unquestionably, I don't think we would be talking about top 3, the big 3. I think we would clearly be talking about the big 2.
Yep.
And I think that's what we got now, with a pretty big bang at the end of the season to crown it out.
100%. Like a number of people have said it, right? Like, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, you couldn't probably write better than this, right? Like, this is a nice cap to the season. You have the best 2 teams throughout the entire season, get to face each other in the final to figure out who takes the cake. I'm excited to say the least.
Yeah. Man, we're gonna we technically were gonna talk about the grand finals until later on in the show, but it's great when we can just kind of reminisce for a second, and appreciate where we are. There are very few times, at least in the time that I've been covering Overwatch, whether it's been casual to where we are now, where you can just kind of say, you can just like sit back and say, this is nice, I like this.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, this is nice, I like this. Sure, not my favorite meta. Two of the best teams in the world. That whatever the meta is going to be, they're going to be competitive in it. And that's again, that's why they are. It's so great to see these two teams in the grand finals, because there's a world, right, where we could have seen something like, imagine the Hangzhou Spark versus Atlanta Reign, right? Like, those are two teams who have competed against each of these teams in the past.
Yeah.
And done well or won, if I remember correctly. And think about it. It's just, thankfully we had a double elimination bracket in the season finals. But imagine another world where that doesn't happen, and you kind of get a little bit of like it's not NYXL versus London in the grand finals, it's Philly versus London. And you kind of go, this doesn't feel as great. So
yeah, that's one thing where I think we need to highlight this double elimination. That was the one systemic change that actually really saved us a great playoff. Like
100%.
It's demonstrated here. I call me an Atlanta hater for this. I don't think they deliver the same performances in the over the playoffs to the degree that Shock did. And I certainly think the finals would have very likely sucked more. Yeah.
They would have been very, very similar to last year, where, I mean, we've even seen it throughout the broadcast. Atlanta has been pegged, I think rightfully so, as the fusion of this year. The underdog kind of dark horse team that is, a kind of a giant slayer, beating NYXL numerous times, falling a little bit short in the playoffs, but playing up to their opponent has been a big narrative point for them. And having them in the finals against a Titans or a Shock, like, I think it probably would have played out in similar fashion.
Like last year.
Yeah, they don't look like competitive teams. There's a team in one class and there's a team in the class below them, and it's very apparent, and you go home with a bitter taste in your mouth, like, wow, well, that was uninteresting. Like, London got to just run a train. Like, it's not very fun. You want to see the 4-3. You want it to go the distance. You want to hear an electrified crowd. Like, and you don't know who's going to win.
This is why I wanted to see more fanfare and more games behind play-ins. Because if you look, Seoul Dynasty and London Spitfire, they went straight to the losers bracket and went out 4-0 and 4-1.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, imagine what that would have looked like if we had maybe a little bit more time. Like, I'm not saying that Seoul and London weren't the best teams in those play-ins, but I'm saying that there could have been a lot more fanfare there. There maybe would have been a team that I think I would have rather seen. I have to go back and just double check that I really mean that. But
we could have definitely found the local goons to intimidate Birdring into playing. Like, with a little bit more time, that would have been worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would have loved to see Guangzhou in playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I think
give me a double elimination bracket so Guangzhou can come back from that Seoul Dynasty thing. Like, I don't know if they would have been as bad. But we only get that single elimination 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we only get these 4-match thing. Like, hey, congratulations, you finished in the top 75% of Overwatch League or whatever. Not 71 or whatever it ends up being. Napkin math. Here you go. You have a single elimination bracket.
Here's your chance
to make it into playoffs. Like, again, just give me more. Give me more. That would have been so. I mean, heck, let those play-in teams come in to do a big playoff LAN weekend.
Yeah.
How great?
I think it'd have been
How
really
cool
nice.
would that have been?
I think it's kind of missing for the finals as well. Like I've been raised at least in esports with, you know, quarterfinals and semifinals being on the next day and then finals being on Sunday, where it's like, okay, well, within these last 3 days, I've experienced these stories and they're very fresh in my mind. Having them like week by week kind of slows that down, especially with
it does
the lack of like impactful content from the Overwatch League. I think they've, again, credits where credits due, they have improved on that with, you know, the little sizzle reels with, you know, the animation studio coming out and making those fun little things like that helps, but it doesn't really tell any stories. It's just kind of vapid.
I don't mind the spacing out so much, but then I don't love the fact that then they make the grand finals be as long as BlizzCon is.
Yeah, like why?
BlizzCon for the entire, you know, BlizzCon, if you've ever been, is a 2-day convention technically, and it's not enough time. You can't if you like more than 1.5 Blizzard games, you can't experience it all in time. But then they try to go and say, you know what? Let's just do a best of 7 over an entire weekend, over 48 hours.
I mean, like last season, it made sense where they were going to do like a best of, what was it? A best of 3 of best of 5s, where you had to win multiple best of 5s to take home the title, which made sense. You know, you play a couple sets one day, a couple sets the next day. Makes sense for the most part. This year, yeah, it's a little weird to see that they've booked the arena for 3 days with only 1 day of actual Overwatch content. Yeah, we have, you know, the pre-parties and the musical guests, which, you know, we can get to if we want to talk about, which I think is, you know, tastefully done. I think it's pretty good. But yeah, it is a little weird now that you mention it. Not a ton of Overwatch content to be done on the other 2 days. I know that I think some of the talent are doing like a live podcast, but I don't know if that's on Saturday or that's within the weekend or what's going on. But yeah, that is a little weird.
Yeah, I think I feel like the end of this season is rushed, and not that we had 4 weeks of playoffs.
Yeah,
but like 1 or 2 matches a day.
Sure.
I would like to see more matches a day. I think you can make that a little bit more grueling at the end. I think you can make it a little bit more. I think you can make it a little bit more of a gauntlet. No pun intended.
You could. I don't mind that it's spaced out, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate it either way, to be fair. I think either or is good in my book.
Yeah. All right. Let's actually start the show. Before we do, a big thank you to the support from our patrons, including Battlecrab, Maid, and Peter Y. Our patron producers, you guys are incredible. Thanks so much for supporting the show. Boom. There it is. Appreciate you all. If you like the show, you want to support, today is the last day of Sub Sunday, or September, sorry. Sub Sunday. What is that? Last day of September. So if you are in Twitch chat right now and you're like, I've got $2.50 I can send your way, half price subs for the rest of the day. So, you know, go ahead, subscribe here. We'll thank you. And we really do appreciate it. Otherwise, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. A lot of great questions in our Discord. Like I said, our Discord, especially the Crouchers Discord, which is a patron-only role. Really great questions generally throughout the week, every week. But also, you know, great ideas on how we can kind of what they would like to see. Like we talked about an extra episode that maybe doesn't go into games as much as like, you know, state of like Overwatch League from like a broad macro marketing perspective and
sure
other things. And so we definitely take that to heart. So patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Let's do that. Follow us on Twitter at @tactical_crouch. Show records live on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time normally, except this week. Sorry about that. And that's it. That's literally it. Here? Oh yeah, we're gonna do we slept on September a little bit. It came and gone. But actually, on the Patreon note, you'll notice that Yiska and Joe sound great this week. And
We do.
a big part of
Hello.
that has been because of the support from everybody from Twitch and our patrons. Getting new microphones. They just got the new unreleased Go XLR minis. You guys sound great, by the way. And
Nice.
So we've already had multiple comments in Twitch too, like, Yiska sounds so good. Joe sounds so good. So big thank you to all those for helping us up that audio game. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so game night, we kind of slept on it a little bit. We're going to do it really early in October if we don't do it this weekend. Well, the problem is I'm at TwitchCon and Joe is at Grand Finals.
Grand Finals. Yep. So the end of the month is a little booked.
Though I'm
there
sure
was talk-
Yiska, you'll probably do a viewing thing probably in Discord anyway, right, for Grand Finals?
Yeah,
Probably,
most
I
likely,
imagine.
yeah.
Maybe we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll do it again where like Crouchers get talking privileges or something like that.
Mhm.
Where that's where we did for our last watch things. So yeah.
We'll see. Maybe we'll throw something together just to say that we did it for this month and then do a proper one earlier. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll get you. Don't worry.
Yeah. So cool. Thank you guys. Let's talk about some of the news really quick. We're going to come back to the grand finals, but there actually is some news.
There is
Teams
news.
are already making
A
some
lot of them,
plays.
Yeah.
Tyrong and Hyung Woo from the Houston Outlaws are no longer with the organization.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
Sorry?
I think
Four
that made a lot of
stages
sense
too
for a
late
while.
to make some changes, maybe.
I mean,
Well,
they couldn't.
yeah.
That's the thing.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Let me get my
And I
cheap
think
jabs
they
in,
would've.
Yiska.
I think they would have, too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, you can rest easy, Houston fans. Your roster probably will be filled out correctly by the next head coach. So, that's an improvement already, right? You won't
Agreed.
randomly see Bonnie on stage.
I would say I think Houston is looking okay from the things I'm hearing. Like they're engaging the right
Fantastic.
people. Of course, like the owner just like tweeting at Elon Musk for investment and whatnot looked a little boomerish, but other than that, yeah, the internals are promising.
Seem to be going well. Good for them. Need a couple more teams to follow in those footsteps. Let's get the ball moving. Boston made some moves. Florida, you're next. What's up? Let me know.
Make some moves. Who else? Moon. Yiska, I think you put.
Yes.
Did you put this one in here? So Moon's been
Yeah.
promoted to Shanghai Dragons.
That was
that's-
like writing on the
that's a-
wall.
Yeah. I mean, the writing wasn't on the wall that until Blue Haas.
Yes,
I
that
forgot the
once
other
you
name were let go, right?
Levi and Blue Haas, once they were
Levi.
removed or let go, whatever they used in their PR,
Mm.
it was pretty obvious that Moon was going to come up. I'll be interested to see who goes with Moon,
So
if anybody.
let's back it up
Mhm.
for a second. I'm an idiot.
Okay.
So tell me about Moon. Who is
You're
Moon?
not though, but former
Who-
LA
who-
Valiant coach for Mighty AOD, was
Yeah.
on
Which
Team
is-
CC, their academy team.
So
They didn't do
basically, he
great.
went from LA Valiant to do some Contenders work, and now he's being promoted to Dragons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Of course, had these meme interviews, and I still believe that was just either
What he said about
lost
the
in
other
translation.
Yeah.
Like about Custa, like Custa knows too much about goats
Oh,
or something
yeah.
like that. It's just like, yeah,
I
I
will
feel
say,
like that's,
I don't know. I agree that it's probably was poorly translated or maybe he misspoke, but with how Contenders finals happen, like I'm starting to wonder, like, Moon, you got some weird ideas, buddy. Like you're a little eccentric, I have to say. I don't know that anybody was playing Ash as much as they were, as weird as Team CC was, but they didn't look great. Maybe it was just a player thing, but I'm interested to see what he does with Shanghai in 2020.
I mean, increasingly you hear that, especially teams where they don't have a hands-on GM, it doesn't matter how much the head coach knows about Overwatch generally. Like,
Sure.
of course, some basic knowledge, and then, or let's say, knowledge about the game, of course, is required. But I think they are just there for structure, and then you have other guys that come in, right?
Mhm.
Like
well, then I still think the criticism fits, right? If you're picking people who don't know the game, then I still have a bone to pick with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you know how much resources he had for Team CC?
I have no clue. I have no idea. But that's why I'm not like heavy on him. I'm just like, okay, well, what's up? Like, first it's putting Kuki in for Custa, whatever that was. Was it actually because he knew too much and was a synergistic thing? Was it something more than that? I don't know, but I have questions around Coach Moon. I've heard good things. Monty seems to like him. Great. Awesome. Why is there so many weird oddities around him specifically? I'm interested to see what happens. If he pops off with Shanghai, great. Awesome. Love it. But if there's another weird odd, like what next, right?
He was the coach that actually turned Valiant around last season. After Cuddles was let go, and then they started their run, right? So that we definitely need to consider that as well. Then we got to think about what it means to be in a completely Korean roster.
100%.
Okay, we're going to disregard Dia. I'm not sure if this boy stole another contract for a year. We will see. But
gotta keep that Chinese tie, you know? Gotta represent at least one person.
I mean, I'm not sure how much he engages in Chinese social media stuff.
I have no idea. I have no clue. Is Creed on Shanghai? I know he coached them for some time. I don't know if he still is, though. It's a good question. I will look just for you. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah.
Let's look it up on the show because that's what our audio listeners really like to do. Everybody stay quiet. 15 seconds. Just
See, with the Go XR, I can mute my mic and look it up, and you'll never know.
Oh,
man, we should have gotten a sponsorship with us.
You like that little plug?
Yeah, should have gotten a sponsorship with us, but I hear the community manager is kind of hard to get a hold of.
Hey, it says that he's currently an assistant coach. That is Creed, former, I think, main support from Miraculous Youngster, legendary Chinese team. But I will stop there. Yeah, assistant coach. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
You want to talk about this other one, Kirby?
I don't know. Like, is there a lot to talk about? I don't know. Like, Kirby, he wasn't really a coach, but
so Kirby from what was his technical role as a coach, right?
No, he was practically GM.
I think he was more the GM of Fusion. Yeah.
So practically the GM of Fusion, as Yiska says.
Yeah, it wasn't called that way. He had some president of gaming kind of a bullshit title.
Operations manager.
No longer with the Philadelphia Fusion. Was there a press release or anything with that, or did they just say, "Hey,
and that is very interesting.
That's the weird part.
Why is he tweeting that? That's my question. Like, what kind of I don't want to drama mill this, but what kind of things need to happen in order for him to just tweet that and not even go into a tweet longer or anything like this? And but of course, like, for those that aren't aware, he was the head coach for season 1 and then moved into a GM role for season 2. Named Twee and Hayes shared the head coach title, and of course that team failed to make the playoffs. So not a successful season from a finals participant. Runner up to the first season, I imagine. I will also say that it seemed to me that this was sort of like a gap year for them, simply because of a lot of the academy team players, such as Alarm, Bernard, and them coming online. So maybe they have other aspirations and couldn't see that with Kirby. But then again, like, we can only speculate, which once again pretty much sucks, I gotta say. Like, why are we in a position where we have to speculate? Okay, was it because he wasn't doing a good job? Is it because he has a job elsewhere? Why is Fusion not saying anything to this? What's the entire deal? I feel like they have been, as an organization, pretty quiet in general.
100%.
All those things, right? So
they have. Honestly, I would say, like, of the like tier 2 teams in Overwatch League, I think the Fusion though have kind of been the most professionally run. Big corporate signings in the background. They've obviously got the Fusion Arena coming in 2022, 2021.
Yeah, in terms of size of scope, I definitely agree. They like their entire project just seems bigger in that regard than the other franchises, I would say.
I think generally the criticism that Yiska is kind of hinting at is, I think, applied to a lot of teams where transparency or just a slight form of it or any kind of transparency is just almost non-existent, where you get a very general PR statement and
what happened to good old-fashioned lying, dude? Just lie. Just give a press release and just lie. At least we don't have to like interpret anything, and everyone that tries to go beyond and like decrypt these lies is like rightfully seen as a lunatic.
You could go the Guangzhou charge route and just like throw Crystal under the bus, make sure he never gets employed again in Overwatch League.
Spark. Yeah.
Spark, sorry.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Same thing. Charge Spark. What are you guys doing calling two Chinese teams with virtually the same city name, virtually the same team name? What the are you guys doing?
You know,
you would have thought that this guy figures this out after paying like $100 for a jersey from one of their coaches. You would have thought that
I'm not wearing it right now, so I don't have the reference. Okay, just because I have a dictionary doesn't mean I know every word in it.
He's a vocal and haptic and visual learner, apparently, or thinker.
Just basically as much as you can give to me without me having to engage my brain. That's the type of learner I am.
Yeah.
Would you just say I'm a non-learner? Make it fun for me.
I notice this increasingly with my cell phone. Like everything I can outsource into this thing that basically is now part of my body is like, okay, so I know where I can Wikipedia it, so I don't need to remember the actual contents of it, if that makes sense.
I'm an efficiency learner. I only learn things that I can learn efficiently.
By doing what?
Whatever is efficient to learn that thing.
Can you expound on that? Like, what's an efficient process?
When I had a job at Apple, I learned a lot about technology and how because it was efficient because I had all the resources right to me. But
Makes sense.
now I don't learn that much about technology because I'm not surrounded by it.
You could also ask knowledgeable people about a specific question rather than just looking it up and hopefully Google figures out what you're trying to ask. Because usually when you ask a question, you're really not. Well, maybe I'm projecting, but I think majority of the time you're not asking that question. You're trying to figure out something else that leads up. Like in a chain of questions, you're trying to come to a conclusion. So if you ask somebody that is knowledgeable in that field, or that could also be pretty efficient. Like if I wanted to learn something about audio, I just go to John and say, "Hey, why is this happening?" Instead of looking it up on Google. And then boom, right? Like he knows what I'm trying to say.
Fair. Yeah, I do that I do that with Dream and Bench. Not Bench so much lately because he's being kind of a jerk. But if I have a question about Overwatch, ask those guys.
Yeah,
they usually give me the right answer.
Yeah,
and this podcast is basically just all a scheme to learn more. So
yeah, that actually works quite well. Like, a lot of people have built podcasts on the premise that they just want to learn things about the world, and they also point a camera in their face. They you are what you consume, right? Like, it's not just about nutrition, but it's also about just general input. Like, what do you surround yourself with? It's the number one thing that I tell a child, like when they fail a class or whatever, like, you have to repeat a class then in Germany. I'm not sure if that's the same in the US, but if you fail a class, you got to repeat the year. And I tell these children that just come to me defeated and say, I didn't manage to get the year done, and that's why I'm here. That's why I need to improve. Like, my thing is, if they come before the the break, the summer holidays, I just tell them, okay, you come into that classroom after the summer holidays and you look at the table you think are the best students in class, and you become one of them. And automatically, by absorption of their habits, of social pressure and whatnot, it's so much easier to be a good student then.
Yeah. No bad.
That's
I
why
always
also
found-
team culture is so important, right?
Yep.
Yeah. How did we get here? What is going on with this show?
Efficiency.
Very efficient.
Yeah,
Exactly.
learning efficiency. And speaking of learning efficiency. Just kidding. This is not it at all. But kind of an efficiency thing. Can we just talk about? So it was Team China, right?
Okay.
Team China.
For what?
Just got their fundraising goal for TwitchCon. Japan? Who was it?
I think Japan did. I don't know.
I have
I
to
haven't
go
been.
back.
I think
to the
China is
Reddit.
invited and paid for.
Yeah,
right?
I'm pretty sure China's invited everyone.
So
Team did it. I don't
Team
know which
New
one.
Zealand also got that. That broke 9 hours ago. But there's another team. Can we just talk about for a second how we have a tier 1.5 tournament in which teams are having to fundraise to get to?
Yeah, not great. I think it's been pretty obvious on the budget cuts. Not being able to invite as many teams, and it kind of really being pushed to the side a little bit, just kind of being something specifically just to represent Overwatch at BlizzCon. Because it seems like every game has to be represented in some way with a tournament or an event or whatever. And World Cup, is pretty popular. People enjoy that time of year.
Love the World Cup. People love the World Cup.
It's a good time, not the most competitive thing, but it's fun to just, see what nation does well. And we talked about this before the show, but it's interesting to me, which you have to kind of pick your poison. Is it, do you close off the opportunity to even self-fund your ticket there? Or do you just allow them to crowdfund and kind of build a little bit of animosity in the process by doing so, right? By just allowing them like, okay, well, we're going to give you the opportunity, but you have to get yourself here. And if you can't, well, that's also not our problem because we don't have the money. Or do you just close it off and say, okay, we're going to invite teams, and if you're not invited, you can't come? Like, I don't know if there's a great way to do it, but yeah, it does feel weird to see a team like have to pay their way.
I think a lot of this stems from changed scopes and remaining expectations. So
Sure.
John, you started this segment by saying it's a tier 1.5 event. I disagree. It's a tier 2.5 event now. It is lower than Gauntlet now in level of play, in the seriousness, not in the viewership, to be fair, because it will be at BlizzCon.
True.
The problem is, if you go back, and I'm not sure how many Blizzard fans are still around in Overwatch, and certainly very new esports viewers as well, but I think there's still an underlying assumption that the big world finals are at BlizzCon. That was true for StarCraft 2. That was true for World of Warcraft. That was true for Warcraft 3 for the longest time, right? Like, everything comes together at BlizzCon, even in terms of esports. Now, this isn't true anymore. We're not having our grand finals at BlizzCon. And we used to fill that void with the World Cup, but now the World Cup isn't as big of a thing anymore because we're taking away all these qualifiers that were also like hallmark events over the Overwatch calendar, and we're just cutting it down, and we're not cutting it down just in funding. For instance, I would be way more mad if Gauntlet players had to pay out their own way.
Oh yeah, that'd be ridiculous.
Because that would be way harder to do. And
Gauntlet isn't filling up a 20,000 person bowl. And I would even be surprised. I would even be surprised to see that many people tune in on Twitch. 20,000.
No, that is true. That would likely won't happen unless there's some advertisement to it, and unless it really is advertised as watch your Overwatch League new talents before they come into the league, and it's sort of like almost like these preseason events for the big traditional sports, as in like these combines or whatever, right? That like if something like this is.
That would be an interesting like manufactured leak, right? Like, okay, so let's, find somebody who will report on it and just say like, hey, the Philadelphia Fusion are looking at this player that'll be at the Gauntlet, and just let that out into the ether. It doesn't really have to be necessarily true. It's pretty vague, but let it slip. And if Philadelphia, if that team's looking at these players, and maybe I should tune in, maybe I should watch. That would be kind of interesting. See if that is a marketing strategy, or an effective one at least.
Yeah.
So all I'm going about to say, so let's talk about BlizzCon first as an event. It's a celebration of Blizzard as a company and the people who support it, their community.
Sure.
And remember, the people that now support it most by playing their games the most and at the highest level are now paying to be there. Not just like a $200 ticket, but their flight, their travel, anything else. Number one, just from a company optics standpoint, makes Blizzard look cheap and completely unempathetic.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah, I think
Not
they
only
could have
that,
definitely supported.
What they've done is they've started milking BlizzCon attendees more with this new like special $600 BlizzCon ticket. It's like, hey, if you want a place to go and rest and sit down, valued customer of ours, pay us an extra $400 a weekend.
I mean, I don't think we have to really discuss that there's a high amount of greed in just how Activision Blizzard.
But I'm like, fine, get that, from the attendees. The people are like, I'm a casual dude. I'm not press. Sure. If I want to spend $600, but if you go to some of these, amazing players who are dedicating their lives to like try and make a living playing their game and be the future of that game, and you're making those teams make an Indiegogo, like, come on, man.
At the same time, the fact that they need to and don't get like sponsorship help doesn't.
Well, they can't, right? I would imagine that they probably can't.
Well, they can, and they have, actually. There was a team I was just scrolling through.
Oh, really?
And it was Team Latvia has secured the sponsor ScandaWeb. Yep, for their Overwatch World Cup travel.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know how they're going to get any kind of return on that, seeing how it can't be on a jersey. I doubt they'll be able to mention them.
Sir, Laser Kittens had a private jet company as a sponsor.
That's true. That is true. I wonder.
But
just gonna leave that there.
I mean, I kind of like that has this community feel-ish thing to it. I think the problem is that the teams that already aren't being invited, they would have had the easiest time collecting the money to go there, like China, the US, and those events to collect stuff would have also probably been pretty dope. I think, like the things that it could have generated. We just have to say, like, if you're like, I don't know what it costs for instance, Germany to fly them out. I'm not sure whether goal, for instance, or whether. I think 3,000 was recently the last thing that I saw. I'm not sure how much you need for the entirety of that team, but it's like you should have the capacity to sort of support that financially. And if not, then that also speaks volumes to the actual interest in the World Cup, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Blizzard thinks that the weather team Latvia, like, no offense, Latvia, but only 3 times on this podcast has the word Latvia ever been said.
Sure.
They think that they're largely the marketing money, the viewership, and everything will be the same whether they have South Korea, United Kingdom, United States, China, Japan, or whatever, playing there, and then those bottom, the bottom teams, hey, if you want to come Latvia, come on, you just got to pay give us money. Like that's exactly what it is, though. At the end of the day, is it's just like, you know what? we're paying the way for these guys, the big ones, the good ones, the people who actually like do it. And then they're like, why doesn't esports grow in this country or this country? Or why isn't Blizzard supporting these areas? And it's just like, well, they kind of have to do it by starting it.
I will say the biggest atrocity is that the US was somehow directly invited despite their recent World Cup. Like, what kind of point mumbo jumbo do you need to come?
They measure it on like the SR, no? Where it's like the global SR of the ladder. No,
it's about the recent
performances.
Performances at the World Cup. And like I remember someone doing the math previously saying, "Oh yeah, the US is actually not in." And then they did some wizardry where they were in, or I don't know how that even works, especially with the recency bias of these World Cup performances. So, but yeah, more tongue in cheek, right? I'm not honestly mad about it.
I just want to live in a World Cup world where a team like Latvia qualifies and doesn't have to shill out to ScandiWeb to get to the event.
Yep.
To get their players on a stage. That's all I care about. Like, I understand that there's numbers and money involved. And again, being cheap on your international stage of customer appreciation and celebration isn't a good look.
No,
for me. And I'll be the first one to call them out on that and say, like, wow, you guys could have done a lot better. And I think the player base deserves better than pay your way. I do.
I will also say, and this is a discussion we recently had also in the like among us. The thing is, my problem stems from the sponsorship approach, where the Overwatch League, because of the Overwatch League system, we have a very close down possibility of just what kind of range of sponsors we can get.
Sure.
Fair. If it means that the Overwatch League gets way more money into the entire system of Overwatch by being this exclusive, that's fair. But then you also
eSports.
Then you also cannot say, well, Contenders isn't making money. For instance, Contenders is in the same boat, right? Well, sure. Contenders isn't really making money because we're not getting sponsors, because we can't, because of Overwatch League. No, like, by limiting Contenders to these sponsorship options, you now have this as a business expense, because there's no alternative to not having a tier 2 and development league. And the same thing is true for the World Cup, where if you limit sponsorship choices, then it's fine to say as the Overwatch League, well, we're making, for the entire Overwatch League system, we're making 20 more millions a year overall, because we have these exclusivity deals. Totally, by the way, over exaggerating probably those numbers, but still at the same time, then you can say, okay, we now have, as Overwatch, as a community, as a esport, have more money. There will be a red number behind Contenders, and there will be a red number behind World Cup, but that is fine because we don't have an alternative. What are you going to do? Okay, we could get rid of
pro,
World Cup.
Right? How do you make sure that you have the best talent in Overwatch League? And it's by stimulating Contenders, Open Division, World Cup, Gauntlet, the SEA Invitational. It's making sure that these tournaments, thanks to the success and the players who are at, Overwatch League level, and through the success of that league, you need to keep high quality players in that pipeline. It's the most important thing. Otherwise, what does Overwatch League look like in 3 years? Imagine Open Division falls off, and all of a sudden you don't have these great Contenders players. They're playing battle royales now. We saw so many Overwatch players go to Apex, and they almost came back for a second. Then Apex started making changes again, and they're like, "Oh, now we're Apex players again."
It's not just Apex; it's also Fortnite. There's a lot of There's honestly like tier 3 Overwatch players that just went to Fortnite, and they made more prize money than any Contenders player in
And I get it. The
Overwatch.
and Joe and I specifically, we've done the broadcast GG stuff. We've done these smaller. Yiska, did you ever do broadcast GG with us? I can't remember.
No.
I don't think you did. But we've been there when it's 80 people tuning in for an open division game, and you're just like, well, what are they going to do? But at the same time, there are very easy and obvious solutions to getting more viewers there. Yeah. And it starts with just optics. But we're at a point right now where really all that matters is if it's got Blizzard's name behind it, those viewer count numbers better be big.
Yep.
And they're going to do whatever they can to make that number big, even if it costs, in my opinion, the legitimacy of Overwatch as a competitive esport path long term, unless they make drastic changes. Assuming that they go this route next year or worse, like imagine it just being an invitational. Hey, we're going to invite these 8 teams, and then we'll take the 8 teams from, I don't know, whoever has the most competitive points divided by the total number of viewers from that country for Overwatch League in 2019.
Yeah. It's also, let's be frank, we also have to, as a community, just take the responsibility there. We have definitely more people spamming on Twitter meaningless support tier 2 than actually those people actually showing up and in those streams watching them. It's probably an order of magnitude less of these. It's just signaling at this point. Like either or these people are just not aware of what they actually like because they're apparently not entertained by Contenders enough to be actually watching. So, of course, that has also something to do with the product and with how it's framed and whatnot. And I hope this improves by bringing different eyes into this scene. Like, for instance, I liked Elo Health's take on the whole OG to Contenders thing. I've heard about streamer teams wanting to assemble, maybe not this time. There's also a problem of regulations there. But I think there is a way to sell Contenders as a better entertainment product than it currently is. And
100%.
It's once again, dude, like in other esports, for instance, in League of Legends, for the longest time, I'm not sure if it's still the case, but their development league was on the main channel and it was promoted. And
I think it still is, yeah. If I remember correctly.
Like that's a trade-off. The Overwatch League, because of making restreams and getting those numbers up and therefore getting more money, like that, there's no justification. Like, yes, Overwatch is possibly making more money doing it that way. You still then need to support tier 2 financially. You definitely cannot put that cost onto the teams, especially the non-academy teams. You got to support them.
I would agree. I think more budget needs to go into Contenders marketing. I think prize pool wise, as bad as this sounds, I don't know that it matters for Contenders prize pool. I think standardized contracts throughout the league would be good. Getting players paid just a small salary would be good. I think just giving them a stage to play is more beneficial than anything that you're going to be able to throw at them, right? Giving them a chance to show Overwatch League talent scouts what you have to offer, because we have seen, going back to the World Cup be successful to highlight standout performers. There are performers from various different countries that you wouldn't normally expect getting opportunities from the World Cup. And to, again, go back to World Cup, it is interesting to see them just completely abandon the structure of the qualifiers and just like, okay, well, these teams are within qualification, so we're going to pay for them. And then anybody else who wants to show up, I guess, can within reason. It seems very rushed. It seems very haphazard. I would have loved to see like regional online qualifiers, maybe, allow the talent to go out there, relieve some of the again, like, what do I know in terms of contract law, but allow some of the regions to be able to sponsor their own events, maybe have like a LAN finals if it's feasible. Again, Blizzard's hands off with this, but allow the community to do its own online qualifiers and then have a seed to BlizzCon where that they'll pay for a couple flights, but not just leave it open to interpretation and let the community figure it out on their own. I think I would agree.
So,
it's not great.
I want to. There's one. I don't think more marketing money is the right thing. Like I don't necessarily think that you can just throw marketing money at Twitch ads and social media stuff to make it work. What I think would bring in the most entertainment for contenders, imagine one match a week during Overwatch League. You bring in the 2 contenders teams to play on the Overwatch League stage in that region.
I mean, yeah, the thing is, can you stem those costs, right? Like of traveling there and
I think that would probably come from a marketing budget.
And again, I think you start in the red there.
Oh, 100%.
You get, Uber and Hex casting him, or you get Monty and Doa casting him. You get Sideshow and Bren on the desk saying, so-and-so from this team is the future of Overwatch League.
Sure.
Contenders is going to be streaming on Saturday. Go check them out. It's funneling that viewership, right? It's all of a sudden going, you go from this like baseball thing where you have MLB and then maybe, like largely AAA baseball is kind of like a joke of like, how can I go spend an afternoon with my family for $15 in tickets and $1 hot dogs? Instead, you go the NFL route of how do I watch NCAA college football to see the future of not only the NFL, but also my team from where I am. I mean, you've already got that infrastructure in place with academy teams, right?
Yep.
So,
yeah, but I think that still needs to be standardized. I think as annoying as this is to say, it's still being figured out. I would like to see that. That sounds like a great opportunity to again put more eyes on the product. I don't know. Even just outsourcing the talent and not, as weird as it is, like not having Blizzard's like overruling like refinement on it. It hurts it in some aspects, but it's probably diminishing returns in terms of cost. But
and again,
I don't know. Yeah, there's no
for me. What is the biggest threat to Overwatch League in 5 years? It's I don't know if there's another Prophet in the system or a Carpe or a whoever your favorite carry person that you can get behind. Whatever, Jake, if you want to use Jake as an example. I don't.
Not a great one. Yeah.
But, like, who are those people in the system right now? Do people know about them? Do they have a following on social media? How are they creating that following? How are the organizations that they're with helping them create that following for that long-term success? Short answer on all of those is they're not. Or if they are, they're not doing a good job of it.
Yeah. It's also like, if it feels like we're in this paradigm of just thinking from an academy point of view, when the majority of contenders teams absolutely aren't academy teams, right? Like, I mean, there is China, there is the other contenders regions. Europe only has 2 or
and
1, I guess.
This is largely from like a Western tier 2 perspective. Like I'll admit I don't know how to monetize contenders in China or South America.
Sure.
I wouldn't immediately know. The first thing I would do is I would hire somebody who does. But
the thing is, we're not going to fill every contenders region with an academy team. That won't work, right?
Sure.
Can we agree on that? So there has to be some sort of way to bridge that gap. I'm not saying that we need to pay these sometimes ridiculous contenders academy team player contracts. We just need to be able to find a system where it is possible, for instance, for endemic esports organizations to come in and sort of like that investment to be worthwhile. Because it currently can't be because their sponsors and whatnot can all not be advertised, and that's a fine trade-off when we're saying that the Overwatch ecosystem is more healthy because we're doing that. That's fine, but we still need to create monetary incentives. It's not even just for endemic esports orgs, but just like teams generally that are created around that. And the region that suffers most from this is probably Europe, I would say. But also some of the teams in North America, because we know that these markets would have the possibility to get sponsors if they were allowed to, but can't now. And also they would be able to create viewership if it was a more open system, and they can't now. So when we're imposing these limitations, we have this same time have to say, okay, then we have to put these costs onto the Overwatch League teams, as they're doing by having academy teams,
Sure.
and on the leagues in general, right? Like these costs, like, yes, it's nice that we're now having more money as an entire scene, but we cannot forget about the Path Pro being initiated there. And it's also like, at some point you just got to say, okay, how much value is actually in the production and the broadcasting of it? If nobody's watching, just give them money anyway, because the important part is that we're getting good players every year, right? Like, then just don't invest as much into these studios, even though they already sort of, I mean, they didn't, splash money at these casters or at those studios.
No, of course not.
It was somewhere in Ukraine for Europe and whatnot, right? But
sure.
But
it definitely helps the broadcast, obviously.
Also, this is another topic that we probably have to tackle after the season's over or after the grand finals. Contenders is also a great incubator for casting talent.
100%. Which, depending on how long these guys want to do it, like you're gonna need somebody to replace them. And if we're traveling all over the place, there's gonna be times where people are gonna have to step in at a short notice, or that's gonna happen at some point. So it not only is a great incubator for casting talent, but production. Again, friend of the show, Peggy went from not casting but observing and producing Open Division and went to Contenders and then worked with Elo Hell and now is in the Overwatch League. You're not going to get those people if you don't have a stage for them to show off, right, and show that they can do what they do, right? So it's important for the ecosystem. It's not just for players, it's for literally everything, literally anything, whether that's a social media manager, a designer, you name it, any job that is tied to Overwatch, you can find from Contenders. I believe that.
Sadly, more often it seems like your chances are better if you take your job seriously in Contenders and aren't a player to make it to Overwatch League than if you are the player itself. We gotta move on from this. I have no idea.
Tangents. That's what makes the show good.
Yeah, people said they wanted.
People show up for that stuff.
Yeah,
probably.
Even if they don't, that's what we talked about this week.
Exactly. So
we gotta roll back here to the grand finals coming up this weekend. Joe, you're gonna be there. You're gonna get us exclusive interviews.
I don't know about that.
In pristine audio quality.
Definitely not. That's definitely not happening.
Yeah, none of that's happening.
I don't know if I'll get pristine interviews for the site that I'm supposed to be covering for, so we'll see.
Did you at least get a press pass this time?
I did.
Hey.
I do. I am qualified for press. I will be there. I will not have to. I mean, I didn't even have to. It was so weird. We'll figure it out. It is very strange though.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a ton of fun. But I think we actually did a really great job talking about this a little bit more in the beginning.
What?
We've already talked about how great it is to see the Titans and the Shock there. How it feels like a truly climactic end to a second Overwatch League season.
Mm-hmm.
But it's time for us to put our money where our mouth is and say why they think. Why ultimately, I'm going to make you say a team you think is going to win. I'm going to make you tell me why. Because it's no nonsense on this show. Joe, I'm looking at you. I'm not going to let you slide by on if so-and-so can do this, I think they'll win unless they, but if the other team does this, I think they'll win. Nope. I'm going to say who, you're giving me $100 right now. Who do you think ends up walking away winning? So we're going to do that. And we're going to actually do that right now. Joe.
Right now.
Do it right now. You got to put your money.
Thank you for filling for me as I think.
I got you. Been doing this for 53 weeks.
Yeah, if I had to pick, I think I'd have to pick the Shock.
Why?
I don't think they showed us a particularly great performance against NYXL. I don't think NYXL really pushed them.
That was a 4-0 performance, by the way.
It was, but to be fair, competitive 4-0 wasn't necessarily reading the match score alone. I don't think it does that match justice. I do think it was pretty close. I think San Francisco, from again my perspective, my very limited perspective, looked kind of sloppy. I think going into this match against a team that they have wanted to beat for a long time and are going to prepare a lot more. And we've seen, to be fair to both teams, very, very well prepared teams. And historically, I see Shock with a lot of momentum. I like a lot of their players. They don't have any kind of strange oddities in terms of their roster. I'm looking at Tizzy. I don't think he's a bad player, but I think when we get to that 0.0001%, that worries me for the Titans, right? He hasn't been with the roster very long. Shock, at least as a core, has been together throughout the entire season. Whether or not some of these players have been played publicly doesn't impact what was going on in practice. So when you move Nevix or you move Super in, that comforts me a little bit more. At least they've had assumed practice time. I don't know if Tizzy's had practice time. It sounds like he hasn't, right? That's kind of where my head's at. I do think this match is going to be incredibly close. I would be surprised if it went to anything less than 7 games. But with a small percentage advantage, I have to go with Shock here.
All right, Yiska. I'm trying to find. They just redesigned the whole Overwatch League website, and now I can't find.
Oh, great!
I can't find any of the homestand results. So Yiska, I'm gonna hear from you.
Okay, so one thing that I think is important to point out is that it's a really weird situation in terms of what practice looks like. So I think 2 weeks is a long time to still figure out a relatively new meta and find out new things that could be very important. Sure. It's also that the other team, unless, or of course you have to keep your scrim circle super tight in order to possibly not leak. Absolutely like new revolutionizing meta takes. So like, let's say there's a 15% chance that either of these teams just come out with a strategy that completely beats what we saw in the playoffs, right?
Sure.
So, and now we have to break down that the certainty of this not leaking to the other team by virtue of scrimming the same partners, for instance. And then these Contenders teams, by the way, like, I don't think any Overwatch League team is currently scrimming. I very much expect them to scrim against, I mean, both of them don't have academy teams, but against maybe gauntlet teams, perhaps.
Would imagine.
So there's a chance that the form that we saw just doesn't matter that much. There's a chance that what happens in these 2 weeks is super important towards how the grand finals will go. And with all this considered, like, if all is equal, I think that the Titans have a better chance to adapt to these very specific circumstances. And by virtue of looking like they already are past the innovation crisis, I think in a potentially very uncertain meta, if Doom is still played, I think if the Shock has to fix things during the series, I think the Titans have a better ability to adapt during a series than the Shock does. But I do think it is going to be a ridiculously close game. I personally think it will go down to game 7, just like Titans have the first map pick. That's also a thing that shouldn't be underestimated in such a close series, that they are the high seed, therefore do have the map pick, right? That's like,
do we want to get the narrative out of the way with first control being, what is that, 100% indicative of predicting?
Yeah,
Get it out of the way now. Yes, that is a coincidence, kids.
Yeah,
that doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It doesn't matter as much, but it's still good to know that you can pick the first map yourself, and then 100%. in the potential ping pong case, you are always one ahead of your opponent to the 7th game, and that is an inherent advantage that the Titans have. Also, nicely, not too big of an advantage, but still an advantage for the upper bracket winner. So I like that. But yeah, 4-3 Titans.
Now, I kind of want to fight you on the adaptation when it comes to Titans. When we've seen Titans lose, it's because, or at least look vulnerable, it's because they either haven't adapted quick enough or they just don't adapt. Even with a shocking, no pun intended, roster change with Tizzy, you expect that to continue or just improve? I really don't see how that's possible in the final, on the biggest stage, with everything on the line. I really don't see that just fixing. I see that as a problem for the Titans, and I don't see that fixing itself, especially against their rival.
Well, to be fair, we already saw that ability to improve during a series, for instance,
100%. I'm not saying that they can't improve in a series. I'm saying when we have seen them lose, it's because they can't adapt or they have problems adapting. We go back to Guangzhou, Chengdu, Valiant, all the matches where they look like they could lose or have lost. It's because they don't adapt to something that's being thrown at them.
Has there ever been a loss in the history of Overwatch in which a team adapted and lost?
I have to think about that a lot.
Here's I have a problem with that argument overall. Is like I feel like I can look back at any team in any game and I can apply that logic and just say, man, if they would have adapted, they would have won. I've never, however, seen a team like, wow, that team really adapted to them well and they still lost. Like,
I guess that's a poor framing or a poor wording of my argument. What I'm saying is that they feel rigid. They don't tend to adapt. They come in with a very strict game plan. At least that's what it looks like from the outside looking in. It looks like they have a very strict game plan. If anything kind of gets thrown at them weird, they do adapt. We have seen them adapt. That's been a very Titans thing to have happen. What happens if that exceeds? What if San Francisco, I would say that they have the better, fuller game plan, being able to use Sebastian, I think, a little bit more effectively. We have seen Titans use it, but I don't know. It seems like Shock are a little bit more comfortable with it. I worry about that. Again, I still think it's a very small edge to Shock, but I don't know where that stands up.
I do think Shock are more fluid in the sense that you can see more looks from them. You're less worried about a last minute hero change. If Vancouver decides to throw a curveball, you would expect,
which I don't expect that of them. They don't feel like it.
That's the reason why I asked the question is like, I don't see that so much as an adaptation. It's just like, they have their plays, they run it. They're you've got the great football quarterbacks who, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, who get up to the line and they start calling audibles. And then you have teams like the New England Patriots, which is like, nope, this is the game. This is the game we run. You're gonna throw that pass, you're gonna land that pass. That's just how we play football. And the same way here, Vancouver is just like, that's just the way we play football, man. We run this play, we execute it flawlessly, and we win. Whereas I think that the Shock don't necessarily
not as much.
I think that's completely switched. I think Titans are way more pickup players. And they like famously what we heard during GOATS is like they win in a million different ways where you cannot even really read what they're doing, and they also the kings of chaos where they win 5v6s so frequently. They hit it from angles you think they wrote the fucking Kama Sutra on Overwatch strategies. It's unreal how that team how that team has an ability to just scramble and figure out things on the fly. I think it's
nothing I'd argue with. I think they are the best scramble team in the Overwatch League, bar none.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, what definitely was the case was that Shock looked more of a unified team. So if I will say, I have confidence in Shock if we are just refining the current meta that we're seeing. And in a refinement, they probably can get ahead. I don't think they're necessary. Like, think of it this way, right? The problem with Titans, for instance, in stage 3 was that they were sort of stubborn on not playing
rigid
Sombra, right?
Yes.
They saw that Sombra was working for some, and still they were late to the party. They probably saw it also in scrims beforehand.
100%.
Now,
thought it was beatable.
The theoretical meta change that we might see, that is not something that is demonstrated to them, right? Like, it's not like their stubbornness really stands in their way there, because they don't have that, thing to look at and say, oh, that's inferior, when it actually isn't.
I think we 100% have that. I think that's the Bastion. It's constantly being thrown around. Oh, this is a cheese comp. It's beatable. Da, 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 da. Every time, and again, this is very anecdotal and kind of vapid, but every time we say that, that composition tends to do well. Look at Clockwork Vendetta, look at GOATS. It can go back. I can't recall any more from that point, but there is an arrogance about Overwatch that we're not really that accepting as yet of odd strategies that are fighting against our little box. We like to sit in our box. We like to play dive. We like to play quad tank, and we just want to refine that. Then a composition comes along to challenge the grain. It does pretty well. Sometimes it overtakes it. Sometimes it doesn't, right? Triple DPS, quad DPS in certain maps. It doesn't really overtake. This, I think, is the Bastion comp, and I think Shock is a little bit more comfortable playing that. I think they can use that. I think they can use their deeper bench, their fuller game. Gives them a slight edge, at least. I think this not necessarily is a knock against the Titans, but when you have an immediate and sudden change in your roster going into playoffs, that worries me a little bit. Don't see that with Shock. Shock, again, admittedly, I don't think looked as good as they could against NYXL. I expect them to do better. I expect Titans to probably look better as well. I just think Shock takes it ever so slightly.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to be
100%.
Okay, so let's assign some. I think there's a greater than 60% chance that this game either, let's say 30% it's 4-3, and then the rest of the probabilities are sort of closer towards the center, where it's like a very close 4-2 or very close 2-4 in those directions, right? Like, definitely the probabilities just curl up towards like closer scores, and while there still obviously always is the the little doubt, because San Francisco was able to steamroll the famous 8%, if you remember those, then yes, there's a fat-tailed probability at the end that it's going to be a disaster and some team is completely going to get blown out, and the likeliness of a team getting blown out is higher for Vancouver for me too, I would say. Like, I think it's much more likely that Shock is going to 4-0 blast them than Vancouver is going to 4-0 blast the Shock in the finals, for instance. Not at all high.
For me, I think that's that element of blowoutery, right? Like, I think that's more for Shock for me. I think Shock goes into this. I think maybe they get, again, like, very weak and stretchy arguments on my behalf, but I can see them going into this and, crumbling a little bit under the pressure. I think maybe that's what was starting to happen versus NYXL Ultimate Economy didn't look all that great. A lot of greedy ultimates, Moth going to point, using B, not being able to win a fight on a flip. Like, it was a little rough at times. Granted, NYXL was the same way. For me, my gut tells me that Shock might be that team that crumbles, not necessarily Titans. Titans is
Interesting.
A team that's been, came into the league as a team. I don't see them breaking down. Maybe with
have you guys covered all the angles
sense
now so that you feel comfortable making
No, not at all. Not in the slightest.
It's just like,
give me the Lotus.
Like, I can just see you guys like creating your like little fortress. You're like coming up like, I think so and so is gonna win. You grab these sandbags and just start
Here's
piling
why.
them up all around you.
Yeah.
And this is the most versatile team in the league, but they also are really rigid, but they are really good at
As
auto
I'm
play.
buying my plane ticket to leave the country so I don't have to have this conversation anymore.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All we can say is it's hard to pick either team. It's going to be a great show, right? Everybody's a winner. There you go. Fence. I've sat on it.
All right. Sounds good. I'm just hoping for a good match.
Get out.
I
don't want a blowout. Nobody wants a 4-0.
I just hope the best
Monty
team
does.
wins.
Monty does.
Well, listen, Monty. Look, I don't think you want to cast a 4-0. Okay, that's all I'll say.
He's not casting.
Regardless,
Maybe that's why he wants a 4-0.
maybe. Who knows, right? Who knows?
All right. That's about that time.
I think it's a good cap.
Yeah. This is a fun show.
Twas.
It's gonna be a little bit quiet from us over the next week as we all go do our own things. TwitchCon,
True.
Grand Finals.
True.
Yiska writing the Kama Sutra,
of
Overwatch.
Overwatch.
Definitely.
So it's a book I would not
It's not
buy,
a terrible.
by the way.
That is not a terrible article title, to be fair.
What do you guys think about teaching the Kama Sutras in school?
That's very progressive of you. I have no clue how to take that question.
Oh my god! I just feel like burned by the radiation of the American Puritanism just coming through my screen right now. John is just like, well, listen, buddy, that's between you and your partner in a closed-off bedroom.
Have sex wherever you want. Just don't try to put anything in me.
Words to live by, folks. Words to live by.
Yeah, just
Don't put anything in
keep
me.
it away from my food. I think those are the two things that I care about most.
Yeah, I would agree.
At the same time, judging by some of the, like, are teachers the best people to be teaching that?
God, no.
Like, I think my biggest question would be like, who is actually coming in and teaching that,
Yeah.
and are they hot?
Well, let's
Just kidding. Okay, I'm done.
let's close out the show, shall we?
It's a joke. Settle down.
I know. I'm teasing.
Everybody, yeah, but jeez,
Proper health for schools. Yes, I would agree. Proper.
yeah, it's I don't know. I'm kind of a fan of Darwinism. Like, if they can't figure it out, should they be reproducing anyways?
The problem is they can't figure it out, and that's why they reproduce. Like,
Does the Kama Sutras teach safe sex?
I have no idea.
No.
My understanding was just all sexual positions, and
yes. Yeah.
from that perspective, I would say.
I mean, if there's
them
art
would
class,
get-
why not? You know,
Any
art?
of them would get them pregnant.
Maybe. I don't know.
it's art.
You'd have to go to like a special, never mind, college or something. I don't know. Like a liberal arts college. I don't even know if that's proper terminology.
If we
I
get to
have no clue.
$200 on Patreon, we'll never discuss any of this again.
Please. Please.
Just kidding. Yeah, we're sorry, everybody. The music, technically, once the music is playing in the background, anything goes.
It's derailed.
Anything goes. So, big thanks to everybody who's hanging out. Hope you guys had fun, at least. Had some good laughs.
Episode 53 in the books.
Yes.
Yiska, I know you've got a new Thinking It Over come in.
Yep.
If Blue ever gets around at editing it, let's go.
What? No. Like, if I don't pay anyone for doing it, I cannot expect it to ever be done. Which is...
He hasn't said anything about the timeline. I'm just being mean to Blue because they've been kind of jerky to me in chat today. So I don't know. Don't you have some editing to do? Jeez. All right. So you've got that coming out. Any teasers for us on that, or want to keep it all secret?
It's about my MVP of the season.
Profit?
Watch me lie to the viewers for 20 minutes.
Why
try
Profit?
to justify why Profit should have won MVP.
Honestly, that would be the most on-brand Yiska move. I think.
It would. I think if I had to guess, it would probably be Rascal.
I guess someone guessed right.
I could totally see it of like, why the London Spitfire were the real winners of season 2.
Yeah. That's a very Yiska video to show up in my inbox.
For sure is. All right.
Or at least the idea of him.
Make sure to tune into that. YouTube.com/YiskaOut. Do you have your own
True.
thing
Yeah.
yet?
That's
Oh.
exactly that. Yeah.
Twitter.com/YiskaOut. Sounding great this week, by the way. I'm excited to hear how it sounds without the
Thanks to
Discord
GoXLR.
compression.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Joe, what about you, man? I mean, I know you you're gonna be at grand
I'll
finals.
be at the grand finals, so if you see me, tall, annoying, bearded fellow, come say hi. That's probably most people. I just gave you a general description.
It's just like gamer guys, yeah.
Yeah, basically. Back where it's at though. That's pretty general. Never mind. What?
Also, just like for people that see Joe just like walk towards his hotel room, get this body boomer out of his hotel room. If he just goes like, my joints, but I can't. I gotta pay $200 for this hotel room just for me to lie down here for way too long. Like, just drag him out. Just get him into.
I'm
into
definitely
other
gonna
people.
be out and about. So please, if you do see me,
You
come
said
say
that
hi.
last time.
Last
before-
time I was out and about. The first year I was sidelined, sadly. Also, I didn't know what to do. That was like literally the first time I've been out of the state, so it was a little bit of a shell shock. But anywho, I will be in the finals. Come say hi. Just published a kind of a longish feature, about 2K words, talking with head coach Spazzo from Fusion University about every little bit of their journey to Korea. I've been kind of corresponding with him throughout the season and just wrapped that up, and that's been published. I got some good feedback, but if you haven't read it, go take a look.
I have a request.
Yes.
Both of you, stop classifying your articles based on how many words. How long will it take me to read it?
Yeah. I don't know.
Can you
2,000,
read?
that's like, like
It's
average.
like 10, 15 minutes, probably.
Yeah.
Something
How
like
much?
that. 10, 15.
I don't think 2,000
No,
words.
less.
Isn't that like 2 pages?
It
Should be like
I think it should be
5
like
to
six or 7.
8. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. 6 to 7. Under
Okay.
10 minutes. Nice read. At least I had fun writing it. My big project that I'm finished with is still being edited, so that'll be out soon. Starting another one. It was randomly inspired by Japanese woodblock printing, so I don't know if that tells you anything. But that's in the works.
Why do you guys make it so difficult sometimes?
Hey, I'm not complaining. I don't question where the muses are. They just, talk to me, and I get inspired and I write. So
Fair
there
enough.
we are.
All right. Well, as for me, find me everywhere at KickedTripod. I'll be posting lots of pics about the adventures at TwitchCon this weekend. Should be a ton of fun. We're staying
show.
at the Good Night Inn by the airport.
Is it like a decent hotel or?
I honestly have no idea. It's just like the name of it does not sound.
No.
But at the
I
same-
hope there's no like weird, stains anywhere. That's all I'm saying.
No, it's all right. I'm sure it's great. sure it's great. I honestly have never.
Fingers crossed.
I'm just really happy to
By
be
the
going.
airport.
Yeah, just really happy to be going.
Yeah.
TwitchCon's a blast. So, I think we have the Discord
Unless you're
party on
married.
Thursday, and they're giving. Honestly, I've had more fun at cons with my wife than I ever
Yeah.
had when I was single.
Oh, damn.
Single.
Than I was Signal.
Then I was Sigma. I cosplayed Sigma before he was released. What do you know?
Yeah. So
Look at my feet.
gonna be doing that. Otherwise, you can find us everywhere at Tactical Crouch and Tactical_Crouch, and search for us, Tactical Crouch, everywhere. Like the show, support it on Patreon, patreon.com/Tactical Crouch. We'll have a game night soon. We'll have just
We'll keep
do
you
it.
posted.
Last day of
Don't worry.
September, by the way.
Get out there, kids. If you got that
Yep.
Twitch Prime,
Sub.
you
Do
know where
it.
to put it.
Or
In the Kama Sutra.
Yiska, do it, or Yiska makes more boomer jokes on the next podcast.
Yeah,
So.
it's getting increasingly risky.
Yeah, you're just.
Don't say it. Don't say
He's
it.
not
I
All
know.
lying.
right. Okay, here we go. Thanks everybody for being here. Have a great week. We'll be here for the post show in a second. Bye.